Hey there guys, so sorry for the lack of videos over the past week. I've just been really busy. I want to take a bit of time now to talk about some boxing in this past week. So Josh Taylor defeating Viktor Postol by a unanimous decision in a fairly competitive fight. Now, I got to see the fight, I watched it on Channel 5, I watched it live. However, where I decided to watch it, I never had any access to the internet at that time, so I wasn't able to make a post-fight video. And this whole week, I just haven't had the time to really sit down and make a video. I've had a lot of shit going on, so let's take a bit of time now and let's talk about the fight. So I was predicting that Josh Taylor would beat Viktor Postol. But I was expecting a stoppage. I thought that it was going to be a one-sided fight, and I really thought that Josh Taylor was gonna put on a show against Viktor Postol. And to my surprise, the fight ended up being very competitive. Viktor Postol, I have to say, man, hats off to Viktor Postol. I mean, he came in the best shape of his life. I mean, he looked in better shape for that fight at 34 years old than I've ever seen him before. And not only that, but he came in technically prepared. You know, he really fought a spirited fight. You know, from the outside, he was very effective with his jab, throwing his right hand to the body, particularly early in the fight. I thought he was really on point, Viktor Postol. He looked better than ever before, in my opinion. He looked better in that fight than he did in the Lucas Matisse fight. Now, one thing I didn't like from Viktor Postol, and it kind of put a dampener in the fight, in my opinion, although it did actually work out for the better in the end, and I'll talk about that later, is Ian John Lewis, man, this referee. Does he not understand? And I could say the same thing about a lot of referees in boxing nowadays. Does he not understand that holding and grabbing excessively is illegal in boxing? Because Viktor Postol held non-stop in this fight. Like, every time Josh Taylor got in range to land a punch, Viktor Postol would just grab him. And yes, Viktor Postol was boxing very well from the outside, but I felt that there was just so much holding from him and so much grabbing that it really made it an ugly fight at times. Now, Josh Taylor managed to adapt. He managed to find his way out of the clinches, and I felt it was a good learning experience for him, because a lot of fighters out there do hold. So, you know, if he's gonna learn to deal with that himself with a referee who just apparently doesn't know the rules, then I suppose that's good for him in the long run, as long as he doesn't lose the fight. But I felt that Ian John Lewis should have been on Viktor Postol's case. I think he warned him once, and it was in like round 9 or something like that. So that was ridiculous. But either way, Josh Taylor managed to grind out the win. He showed some stamina in this fight. I mean, because he was taking a lot of body shots. He was getting hit with jabs from the outside. And I remember going back after the 6th round, and the first 6 rounds were competitive. In fact, I think quite a few people had Postol ahead. I think I had it even, because I felt that Taylor still was landing the more telling blows. I mean, every time he landed that left hand, there was a thudding effect with it. And after the 6th round, Josh Taylor went back to the corner, and I remember he looked really concerned in the corner, as did his trainer, Barry McGuigan's son, Shane McGuigan. You know, he looked really concerned in the corner, and they had to really try and calm Taylor down in that corner and try and get him to think clearly, which they did. And you know, I just felt that he got himself a second wind by about the 7th, although he was stunned in the 7th from what I remember. I remember Viktor Postol caught him with, I think it was a left hook in the 7th and a right hand, which, you know, buzzed Josh Taylor and, you know, damaged him above the eye. And I remember Josh Taylor after the fight had a bit of damage over his right eye. And I just felt that Josh Taylor, he got really chin checked in this fight. But by the 8th round, I felt that Taylor, like I said, he got a second wind, and I felt that he was starting to take over the fight psychologically, because Viktor Postol, to me, was starting to fall apart. You know, he was obviously the older man. He was starting to feel the pace of the fight. You know, whenever Taylor would work the body, or whenever Taylor would get that uppercut going inside, I felt that Taylor adjusted on the fly, whereas Viktor Postol, you know, his earlier tactics of pot shotting from the outside behind a jab and a straight right to the body, and then holding, you know, they weren't as effective in the later rounds for whatever reason, because Taylor obviously was adapting to it. You know, Taylor's a very good technician. I told you guys in the past, Josh Taylor is a very high IQ boxer, a very high IQ boxer. The guy really knows his way around a ring. for a guy who had only 12 fights going into this fight, he has a tremendous, ring IQ. He has the ring IQ of a guy with 40 pro fights. He really does. So that was really impressive from Josh Taylor, the way he was able to adjust on the fly against such an experienced boxer in Viktor Postol, a boxer who's a former world champion and whatnot. And it was reminiscent of the Miguel Vasquez fight, how Taylor was able to adjust in that fight, and then he was able to break him down and stop him. In this fight, he wasn't able to get the stoppage. However, he did score a very impressive knockdown in the 10th round. Towards the end of the 10th round, he landed an overhand left, which had Viktor Postol all over the place, had him down, and it looked like he might get stopped, but Viktor Postol has never been stopped as far as I know, and he was durable enough to get through the fight, so it is what it is. He showed a good chin, Viktor Postol, I have to say, like particularly early in the fight, because Josh Taylor landed some heavy left hands and some right hooks too. Viktor Postol actually took them well, so yeah, credit to Viktor Postol, man. And he showed a lot of respect to Josh Taylor after the fight. Viktor Postol said that Josh Taylor was a heck of a lot better than he thought he would be, and yeah, he gave Josh Taylor all kinds of credit afterwards, and the two guys showed a lot of respect. There was no trash talk on the build up to this fight, which I like, and yeah, these two guys genuinely respected one another. Now, I want to talk about a few things that have been talked about after the fight. Now, Josh Taylor is the mandatory now, because this was a final eliminator for Jose Ramirez's WBC title. Now, I haven't seen Jose Ramirez fight much. I've seen a little bit of the Amir Imam fight, but other than that, I haven't really watched the guy. Or I may have watched him and forgot about it. I don't know, but I don't know. I certainly haven't seen a lot of the guy, so I don't really know what to make of it, but as far as I know, the guy's undefeated in something like 22 fights. I haven't looked at his record recently, but I'm pretty sure he is undefeated. I'm pretty sure he's got a decent knockout percentage too, so I'll need to look that up. Josh Taylor certainly showed in this fight, although he showed he was able to adjust and adapt against a world-class opponent, he did show a few vulnerabilities. He was hurt a few times. Like I said, in the 7th round, it looked as if he was about to get dropped. He was hurt in the 8th round too, so I think that Josh Taylor has work to do. I really do. Although I still think he can be world champion. This Ramirez guy is only 25, I think. He's a young guy. Taylor's 27, so he's a young guy too, but he's a little bit older than Ramirez, and Ramirez has a lot more fights from what I understand. He's had 20-something fights. I think he's had 22 fights, and Josh Taylor has only had 13 fights now, so I'm thinking, and I'm pretty sure that Ramirez has a fight coming up. So I'm thinking just from the perspective of a Josh Taylor fan, because I am a Josh Taylor fan. Okay, he's from my backyard, and I really want to see him win the world title, because he says if he wins the world title, he's going to be bringing big fights to Scotland, which I like. Now, I think it would probably be wise for the McGuigans to get Josh Taylor a tune-up fight. Now, again, I'm not talking objectively here. I'm speaking as a Josh Taylor fan who wants to see him win the world title. I think that it would make sense to try and get Josh Taylor a tune-up fight. Somebody who's maybe stylistically similar to the champion. Like I said, I haven't seen much of Ramirez, but Josh Taylor was set to fight Humberto Soto earlier this year. Maybe if they can reschedule that fight, because that'll be a good fight. Stylistically, he could learn. I mean, Humberto Soto is a Mexican. He's quite stocky. He's quite tough. I don't really know if he's anything like Ramirez stylistically. Like I said, I haven't seen much of Ramirez. I think Ramirez is about 5'10" or something, isn't he? So perhaps dimensionally it's a different type of opponent, but I just think that I think that a tune-up fight would serve Josh Taylor well if he were to go for a tune-up fight. I mean, it's been a few days since the Postol fight now, and I think Josh Taylor, maybe in a few months' time, towards the end of the year, should just take a tune-up fight and just try and get a few more rounds in. Just get a bit more experience. Try and work off of that Viktor Postol performance and see if he's improved since. Then stick him in for the world title shot next year, because I mean the world title ain't going anywhere. I mean, I don't really see the rush. He doesn't need to fight for the world title next. I mean, the guy has only had 13 fights, so I mean, let's be real. There's no need to rush him into that world title shot right now. But I mean, it's up to them. Obviously, the McGuigans believe Josh Taylor's got the ability. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put him in with the likes of Miguel Vasquez and Winston Campos, Dave Ryan, and Viktor Postol. I mean, these guys are all vastly experienced fighters who have had a lot more fights than Josh Taylor. So obviously they believe in him, and I've believed Josh Taylor could win the world title ever since I saw the Dave Ryan fight, and you guys know that. I made a video back in 2016 where I said this guy could be the best fighter in the UK right now. He could be the best. A lot of fighters in the UK have won world titles without being world class. I mean, you look at um, guys like Anthony Crolla. I suppose you could put Ricky Burns in there too. Guys like Scott Quigg, Carl Frampton. Who else is there? Even Carl Froch, to be honest. I mean, a lot of these guys, in my opinion, Gavin Rees, there are so many fighters from the UK which I don't think are personally elite fighters. I don't think they're world class. Yet a lot of these guys were able to pick up belts at some point. So, I see no reason why Josh Taylor can't. I think Josh Taylor is a vastly more talented fighter than Ricky Burns. I think he's a vastly more talented fighter than Carl Froch. I think he's a vastly more talented fighter than Gavin Rees, vastly more talented than Carl Frampton, vastly more talented than Scott Quigg, more talented than Anthony Crolla. I'd even say he's more talented than James DeGale. He's more talented than probably even George Groves. I mean, there are a lot of UK domestic level fighters who picked up world titles who I think that Josh Taylor is leagues ahead of in terms of just talent and skill. So I would certainly expect Josh Taylor to win a world title at some point. So let me know what you guys think anyway, and thanks for watching.